Hey, everybody. I am so excited to be with you here today. I'm Haley Gray. I'm the founder of the Women's Entrepreneur Network, and we are here for another WEN-Talk event. I have one of my dear friends, Kim Jeffs, and I want to welcome her here with me today on this live that we're doing. And we're going to be talking about a really cool topic because I'm seeing kind of a trend with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm seeing this a lot with professionals too. Um, my husband's company is giving them extra mental health days because they're concerned that people are burning themselves into a crispy fritter.
Right.
Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you here. So tell me what it is that you do.
Yeah. So I am a trauma therapist by training. So I'm a trained psychotherapist and I've moved more into the coaching world because I'm doing a lot of teaching. So I have a caseload of clients, coaching clients. I do something called somatic therapy and I work a lot with high stress physiology, stress, burnout, and trauma. And so I do trauma coaching and business coaching with women entrepreneurs. So this
Very
is,
cool.
yeah, we have that in common and I'm grateful to be here. But yeah, burnout is a big topic that I'd love to talk about with you today.
Yeah. So tell me like what you're seeing with people with burnout.
Yeah. So, I mean, underneath the pandemic that's been going on has been the mental health epidemic. And what we're starting to see, especially as, society opens up, is symptoms of stress and burnout. And particularly with entrepreneurs, what we now know is that entrepreneurs tend to have high trauma histories. And with high trauma histories comes a greater success, greater chance that we are going to have high stress physiology. So we're more susceptible, that's the word I want to say, to having high stress and burnout because our physiologies, a lot of us have been through difficult life experiences. And so we also have a great capacity to be really resilient. So often entrepreneurs are finding this gap in either their own personal lives or the gap in the market, and they're figuring out how to solve that issue, that problem. And that comes from having lived through difficult life experiences. The problem with kind of the stress and burnout that we're seeing is that we haven't really dealt with our traumas, our personal traumas, our collective traumas as a society, things like that. And then we're running into all these mental health symptoms, physical health symptoms, chronic pain,
Yeah.
autoimmune diseases, relational issues, families struggling, things like that. So this is a huge plug-in for us to become more resilient. We have to actually go back and do some repair work around some of the things that have caused us difficulty in our past.
Yeah. I can see that. And I mean, I think that the last 2.5 years, especially in businesses and working from home and being somewhat isolated, has done a number on people's heads and minds and souls and brought up all kinds of problems and trauma that we didn't even know we had and
Right.
introduced new trauma.
Introduce new trauma, brought up our old stuff, introduce new stuff. But yeah, isolation, I mean, one way to repair isolation is to come into social engagement, which is what we're doing here today. So
Right.
even though we're both in, our at-home office settings, even virtually, we can come into eye contact and into relationship with other people. And part of what I've learned in the pandemic is how to be like really creative with doing that.
Right.
Because our old ways weren't working anymore. So we had to get creative, sit in
Right.
parking
Exactly.
lots, feet apart, do Zoom calls, any way that we can come back into relationship with other people stimulates our vagus nerve, our social engagement system, part of our vagus nerve. And from there, self-regulation and co-regulation can happen.
Mm,
So it's really key to be figuring out how we can bring ourselves as entrepreneurs and even our employees into some sense of community and social engagement, because that's where we're going to get all of those kind of trauma physiologies energy out of the way and come back into our own ability to self-regulate and co-regulate with
Yeah,
others. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Yeah. And tell me, like, what are some tips that you have? And I know you were talking about maybe doing an experiential thing with people. So let me know which way you want to go here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a whole bunch of somatic exercises that we could do, but if you're up for it, I can kind of demo some with you, and you can kind of report to
Sure.
me and those watching what you're noticing. So, you're up for
Cool. Let's do it.
it? Okay. So let's have you do the first thing we can do is just let out a big sigh together, and then
Okay.
track your body and see what you're noticing. Okay. So I'll do it first. You could do it with me.
I feel the release when I do that.
Yeah. And where do you notice that?
For me, it's almost like a whole body release.
Yeah.
I do it a lot, just because I do a lot of energy healing and stuff, but it's that like, just like let it all go. Let it, let it
Yeah.
go, let it go. And I just feel that like almost like the ties and the cords and the energy just like popping and releasing and just kind of floating away. And it's like, oh, that feels good. I'll do
Right.
it again.
Yeah. Let's do it again. One more time.
And it just feels so nice.
Yeah. I
But
feel
it's
like
almost like a
go
law of
down
diminishing returns.
the center of my body, and it goes downward. I can kind of have more access to my feet. We do some of these things naturally, by the way. So this might not be rocket science to some people, but what it does is it releases the vagal brake. So we have a
Mhm.
vagus nerve. It attaches from the back part of our brain around our neck all the way to the top of our diaphragm. And when we sigh, we can kind of like let that go for a minute.
Yeah.
We can experience kind of that internal sensation of, yeah, letting go, or not constricting so much on the inside of our body.
That explains. I mean, I feel it like in my sinuses, and then I feel it all the way down the center of my body, and I'll even feel my toes tingle when I do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of fun.
Yeah. So you want to try another one?
Sure. I'm
Okay.
game.
So the next thing you can try doing, and this comes from Dr. Peter Levine, actually, who founded somatic experiencing, which
Mhm.
is a trauma therapy technique, but he suggested vooing because it creates some movement all down the esophagus into that top part of your diaphragm. And it's a little different than oming. We generally om in meditation classes or yoga classes, but try vooing and see what happens in your body. So I can start, and you can join with me if you want.
Okay.
Voo. Voo.
Yeah,
What do you
that's
notice?
fun. Yeah, I noticed the vibration, like all up and down.
Coming
That's
down here in the core. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I have like maybe a little heat, a little buzzing. It goes from
Mhm.
the inside of the core of my body to the outside of my limbs. I can kind of feel it down my arms.
Mhm.
So part of assessing, these are just some somatic skills and tools, but part of assessing burnout is being able to feel our body and our body
Mhm.
sensations, right? So if we trust in the innate wisdom of our body and that it's telling us that we have needs that we want to protect, yeah, it's going to let us know when a boundary comes up. So
Hmm.
some of the work that I do with clients is just really helping them tune into like what's happening on the inside of their body, what the innate wisdom is, and how they can tap into those sensations to know if a boundary is coming up and when to set it, so that
Interesting.
we don't experience, just activation, stay in activation all day long and then go to bed. Uh, Days like that, or job positions like that, will lead to high stress physiology and burnout. So we
Mhm.
want to create, even if they're micro moments throughout the day where maybe we experience intensity, activation, and then we settle. And these
Right.
can be little practices that you do in between Zoom meetings or, phone calls, or just take work breaks. But we need these micro moments to let our body not just activate where we're going to get work done, but where we can settle
Mm-hmm.
and move things through. Yeah.
I see that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always like why I find that, being done with a meeting, like if I have a 1 o'clock meeting, then it goes to 2 o'clock. If we can be done by 1:55, it gives me that chance to get up, stretch, move, breathe, go to the
Breathe.
bathroom, take a bio break, stretch and, move, because I don't know if you do it, but I can find myself, especially in a world where I'm doing a lot of digital marketing and I'm doing things that require like concentration, I can go down a rabbit hole and look up and it's 6 hours later.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's been, for me, what's been harder about just working from home. I was in an office type setting, and now I'm solely working from home, but the Zoom meetings are back to back. We don't have like, some of us, including your position, we don't have like side conversations that we're having in between meetings, that ability to kind of socially engage and move our bodies and
Mm-hmm.
get kind of tunnel vision a little bit into what we're doing. But then at the end of the day, we've realized like we haven't taken a break for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do kind of have an office mate because my husband is working from home. And for periods of time, my kids are here or not here, doing class remotely from whatever school they're in. But what I see is even then, we're not taking breaks at the same times. So we're really not having that, side conversation or that break because there's not enough of us around taking breaks to actually have that like side conversation.
Right.
That was such a hallmark of being in a corporate job to me. It was having those side conversations with people.
Right. And I think especially as women and especially as entrepreneurs, if we're, or solo entrepreneurs working from home, we need to do better at just creating any sense of community that we can so that we can feel support and socially engage with others.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be key to all of our success. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, burnout is a thing. Whether you're in a job, in a corporate job, in a corporate environment, or, you're leading an organization and you've got employees, modeling that too is important and tricky.
Yeah. And I've actually seen, because I work with a lot of women, not exclusively, but I work with a lot of coaches, therapists, professional service providers. And I've seen clients not just get burnout from work, but like burnout from parenting. The constant, like everybody at home type of thing recently, or the juggle of like, is school, in person, at home. So you can see burnout even in your personal life.
Mm-hmm.
We're not like, we're these human beings, right? So that are like complicated. So we're not just like, oh, we're burnt out at work, but then we're not at home.
Oh, no.
No, it affects your entire, your community, your social life, your personal life, your career.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's one of the hardest things too, is that like when you're working at home, setting up those boundaries between work and home and taking breaks and having that opportunity to take those breaks. I mean, there are huge benefits to working from home.
Right.
However, it can be really tempting to just go, pull up your phone and just check a few emails or respond to a few text messages in the middle of family time.
Yes. Yeah. I think something key around that is like figuring out how to mark the start and end of your day. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're at home, whether that be walking around the block, or because we can kind of get into some people, especially if they're trying to manage stress and burnout, we can get into kind of unhealthy habits, such as like, an alcoholic drink every day at 5 to mark an end of a day or something like that. Every once in a while, that's okay. But if these are habits that you start, having to kind of manage your physiology, like what else can we put in place? Mm-hmm. That's going to mark like the beginning of a day or the end of a day or a weekend. How is that going to be different?
Yeah, no. And for me, it's taking the dogs to the dog park at a particular time, or cooking dinner at a particular time, or, getting up and exercising at a particular time, and having those things in my schedule so that I'm aware that they're in my schedule and that they're just as important as that client meeting.
Right. Yes. No, that's so key. It's so key. Because if you do have any sort of trauma background or history, that high stress physiology is what kept us alive, right? And like entrepreneurs have a very high capacity to feel like crap, and they have a high capacity to perform. That's why they're successful.
And a
And
lot of times we feel like crap and we perform because we know we have to perform to put food on the table. So we're still performing even though we feel like total monkey garb.
so true. And that's the resiliency. So there's a high resiliency qualities of the entrepreneur, and for the brain and the body to assess like when do we not have to perform? When can we rest? If never's a good time, that's a problem, right? Yeah, because there has to be a good
Absolutely.
time for us to let go and unplug and de-stress.
And do all the things. Cool. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they go about getting in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way would be via my website, thesomaandsoul.com. And on there, I basically do three things. I do individual coaching. I'm actually selling an app-based course on how to use somatic techniques and the trauma foundations of trauma treatment. And then I run international retreats for women called Build Your Soul Vessel Retreats. So yeah, the website is the best way to get, the full scope of access to what I do and what I offer. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here today and doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care. And welcome to our next speaker. Hello, Leslie. Hi. So happy to have you here.
Oh, hi, Haley. Thanks for inviting me. I was all ready.
I am so happy to have you here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am just delighted to have you here today. And I am going to turn the stage over to you and let you do your thing. So welcome, Leslie. I am so excited to have you here and so honored.
Thank
and you. I'm going to give you the full screen and let you go for it. Thanks.
Now, wait, does that mean you're not going to ask me any questions, or I can't ask you your point of view about anything?
You can if you like.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Let's see how it goes. And listen, you can interrupt and ask something too.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So one thing about Haley, she doesn't know that I've never told her she's my hero. Is she yours? She's everything I would like to be. And I get to fly higher than an eagle because you, Haley, you're the wind beneath my wings. So I know she didn't expect that.
Aww.
And she was off stage. I wanted you to know. I've known Haley for quite a while. And she invited me here today to talk to you about something that's very dear to my heart. And that is taking people into their new zone of genius. Well, what is the zone of genius? And new implies that you've been there before. And you really have been there. Those are the times when you absolutely know what the right answer is for you, and you go right ahead and do it. However, where I work with you is you start where you are with your basic self, and then we move in through learning in spaced repetitive intervals over time and following a 90-day goal, which is designed to become a new belief, right? Perfect faith in you're doing something that you had never done before. And by the way, doing it really well. And so when you set a goal and then you focus on it and learn about it and apply it over a 90-day period, ultimately you've built complete faith. So why is that important? Because right now, when we get a new idea without these new beliefs and new neural pathways, without that, then we have a default belief, right? Which is pretty well based on the 6 basic fears. But we have a default belief, which is I can't do it. I failed before. Let someone else do it. I'm not the right one. I'm not expert enough. I don't have enough experience. None of that is true, but it is true for you. And so our beliefs that we have right now, those ones that have an associated, let's say, less than positive response when you get a new idea, that initial thought is, oh my God, don't move, right? I'm not doing this. I don't want to. Well, that was established, as you well know, through repetition when you were little. And a lot of people think that those beliefs were survival techniques, and maybe they were. If you were humiliated or embarrassed in second grade, did something wrong and everybody laughed at you. They say that public speaking is the number one fear over death. And that's where it comes from. Now, these are our defaults. So when we get a new idea, bingo, into our mind before we can inhale the conversation based on the past and your failures, primarily that you can't do it, you give it up. When, however, you follow a particular pattern and you purposely and intentionally follow what we've already been doing, you've already been creating faith in things. That pair of skates that you wanted so badly, right? That everybody had when you were little and you wanted them so badly, and you harangued your parents for them, and you pulled pictures out of the Sears and Roebuck catalog when it had a special key. If you're a boomer, you know what I'm talking about, or a senior. And you didn't let it go, did you? Your children do this with you. And through a period of time, with a particular intensity, they really want it, you really want it, and you're doing this in spaced intervals over time, you end up manifesting what you want. You didn't even know what you were doing. So there's really just 4 steps for that. But every time people who work with me create a goal and achieve it in 90 days, they have a new neural pathway, which is a new way of thinking about that thing that you're getting ready to do. It outweighs the old one because you created it. So before the words can get into your head, I can't do it, because you've done this before. And I'll invite Haley to share, because she's done this with me, I don't know, 8 or 9 times, probably business quarters. Effectively, what happens is, before the other one has a chance to break into your conscious awareness, you take 2 steps and you have a new conversation. But wait, you can do it. But don't you remember you did do it? So by proving, and proof of faith, that you actually are capable, it moves you into your zone of genius. So you start where you are. Then each time you do this, you move into self-awareness, then a higher awareness. And after 4 iterations, creating 4 new beliefs and perfect faith in yourself, you now have 4 new conversations, new beliefs that get into your mind before the old ones that make you play small. And so agile thinking, or is in the zone of genius, yields this. And then, Haley, listen for this, because this is what I want to address to you. I'm so excited about this. Once you've done this, you now have the control over what thoughts come up, and you're saving time, because time doesn't tolerate hesitation. How often do we get an opportunity and we wrestle with it for an hour, a day, a week, before we realize, ooh, what a great opportunity. Well, we could have been already down the road. So your zone of genius is actually a pathway, using my work over the last 15 years, to set and achieve goals based on the 12 laws of achievement, which my clients, including Haley, have used for 40 consecutive business quarters. Haley, I apologize for mentioning this. So what I'm going to do is stop and ask you, if you would, for your audience, what is it like when that new belief, the one that proved you could do this, right, that you hadn't done it before, what is it like time-wise and peace-wise for yourself to be able to do this effectively?
it's nice to get out of your own way. I think there's a lot of crap going on in our own heads that we sit here and wait on it until the cows come home for whatever reason. We're waiting. Moo. Moody, 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 moo. And you know, it's really interesting. It's like when we start getting out of our own, you know, way of doing things accelerate extraordinarily.
Yes.
Just do it, right? You know.
Yeah. And
but just
right. Find a master. Now I'll be in the WEN Summit and I will talk about how this works. But what I want you to know is you're already doing what is necessary. The power is in distinguishing, what do I do? I'll be okay to repeat it. So that is what my work is about. And that's what I'm going to be sharing about. So Haley, any questions from you? It's kind of ad hoc, so it's fun.
This is totally ad hoc, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to me, figuring out the goal setting and what you're good at and where you need to be focusing your time. It's one of the things I focus on with my marketing clients and with some of my, social selling clients, because sometimes, maybe we belong on LinkedIn and not Facebook. Maybe we belong on YouTube, not TikTok, figuring out what the best way to do things is for us, for our own wiring, and getting out of our own way. It's amazing once we start doing that.
And thank you for that. The more times you do this, the more new beliefs you have. And with every belief is that wonderful conversation. You can do it. Plus it feels good. And of course, the whole idea is to feel happy, healthy, and wealthy every day, not a goal somewhere out there. We would like to have money, but we don't want to be sick and miserable. The way to create a mindset that is wealthy, happy, and healthy every day is, as you grow your business, grow the way you think. You can be an agile thinker. That's what this is. It's agile thinking. But don't forget, what's actually going on is you're creating a brand new neural pathway. So the brain has something to do with this, because we want it to fire before the old ones. But the old beliefs have been running us for years. Like one of the programs I created had to do with entrepreneurial women, because we've spent 5,000 years being everything to everybody and like a whirling dervish, taking care of this, that, and the other. It really took some discipline to put those parameters you were talking about with the last guest, the parameters at the beginning, the middle, or the end of the day, and sticking to them. And that is a challenge, right? Because, Haley has 4 children and a husband, right, and several animals, rabbits, bunnies, and all sorts of things that all have their own needs.
And one of my kids is more than special needs.
Correct.
It's not like it's a, 9 to 5 traditional growth pattern, just to be clear to y'all. It's not like a, oh yeah, she grows up and she's totally independent kind of situation.
Yeah. So what I would tell you is I've been doing this work for some time, lots of client results, really good. And I love taking you into your new zone of genius. And it's a pathway, and there's an assessment as you go along. And when you arrive, you have 4 brand new neural pathways and 4 brand new proofs of faith that you can do it. And these are beliefs that stick. So it's tied up with setting the goal, the thing that you want, ideally in a 90-day increment, and following the 12 laws of achievement, which I've developed over 5 years. Because, I've asked people all over the world if they were ever taught how to set a goal. No one was. And what I've discovered, Haley, is about half of the laws people know. Through trial and error, they actually know a lot, but it's the ones they don't know that trip them up. And I love your expression, getting out of your own way. When you know those other 6, you have yourself a simple checklist, and you always have your best shot. And every time you achieve a goal over 90 days, you have new neural pathways firing, a new language that pops into your mind when you get something new. You feel better, right? You feel really great, and your confidence grows. So it's possible. Now, not a lot of people are ready at the same time, and not a lot of people are willing to do the work, right? So, but people know when they're ready.
Mhm.
So if you're the kind of person that's done all of this, but you're tired of haphazard or sporadic results because you know there's more, then I'm a person that could probably help, but we could have a conversation. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also, one of the things I will say about what you do is it's not about setting endless quarterly goals to beat yourself into the ground.
No.
Right. And that can be one of the things that people start to think is like, oh, well, I'm going to set a quarterly goal and I'm going to do it every quarter for 4 quarters. And then I'm going to be dead at the end of the year. And no, it's not that way.
No, and actually, you can confirm this, that in every year that goes by and every client, it works out where there's a quarter that is totally self-care directed, because you don't want to burn out, but we work hard, right? And we're go-getters. You put us on the path with the right steps, we're on it. But then we don't recognize that we need some time off, right? And so actually my program, typically one of those goals every year is self-care, to your point. And that's it. And that's really all you have to do. You can do more, and there are other things you can do, but getting to the zone of genius where you have brand new beliefs that you've created that outweigh the old ones, that are practice and proof and build your confidence, is where you want to be. So the next time you get, and for the people, when I say new zone of genius, for those who have been there, like you, Haley, it brings you back, right? It refreshes everything. There's a cell memory. So for the former clients, very often come back and do a brush up, right? To bring the principles of success and the universal laws and all the universal truths back to the forefront. And then all these new ideas show up again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
absolutely. I love it. Yeah.
Good. Was that helpful? How are we doing on time?
You've got like 2 minutes.
Oh,
how does somebody get in touch with you?
Oh, right there. That's, if you go there, you will land on a sign-up page for my 5-day masterclass, which is next week, Monday through Friday, 1 to 2 Eastern. On Zoom, it's complimentary, easy peasy. Bring coffee and tea, a pencil and paper, and I will share everything about achievement and how to do what I've talked about briefly.
That's awesome.
That's the best place.
So what are you going to do in this 5-day thing you're doing?
Oh, well, you're going to see things you've never seen before. I'm going to show you and explain the 12 laws of achievement. I also call them the golden rules of result. I'm going to explain what they are that we've never been taught and why they work and examples of how they work. I'm also going to teach people how in 4 steps you can take an idea, which is thought, energy, and turn it into physical form. That's manifestation. You do it all the time. When we break it down into very simple steps, the light bulbs go off because you already knew it deep down, but it hasn't bubbled up. When you become a master in anything you do, and Haley, I know you'll confirm this, you spend years figuring everything out, and then finally you reach a point where everything looks simple again. Mm-hmm. Right? It took me 15 years in this to tell you with a picture how simple it is to take an idea and turn it into physical form. The only snag is the 90 days where you've got to be somewhat disciplined and you use the the checklist to make sure you set the best possible goal. I'll go into the different kinds of seeds there are. I'll go into how to make your goals stick, the performance gap, and concepts people have never seen. But the most important thing is that everybody will bring 3 goals that they would really like to have by the end of the year, and keep those in front of you. And so as I go through the masterclass and reveal this information, you can be looking at your goals to see which one fits the best. And by the end of the week, you'll be set for the next quarter. Does that help? Yeah.
That is very helpful. That is awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Fun.
And for hopping on and doing this.
Yes. And remember, Haley, when you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet, simple song of the lark. Thank you, my friend. I much appreciate.
Thank you. I appreciate you too. And thank you. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Good. Bye.
Y'all follow Leslie. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And with that, we're going to welcome our next speaker, the indomitable Sheyenne Kreamer, who is joining us from, looks like, RV side. So you're going to have to tell us where you are. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the stage if that's okay.
Sounds awesome. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. Good deal. Yes, I am Sheyenne Kreamer, and I am still in Raleigh, North Carolina right now. But yes, this is my home on wheels, and we're getting ready to pull up stakes next Tuesday and head up to Virginia. So I am a full-time RVer, and everything I do from the road. So thank you so much, Haley, for allowing me to come and share with your audience here today. I appreciate you very much. And, you know, we've had a lot of fun over the last few months getting to know each other better and better. So I am grateful for you. But today, what I really want to talk about is a concept that may resonate, may sound a little different to some people, but I remember a bunch of years ago when I was living here in the Triangle full time, there was an organization called Spirit in Business. And, you know, that might sound a little different depending on your perspective. But what I'm here to say is it was very much about putting our spiritual nature back into business. It was about remembering who we are at our core and making that part of our business and part of our activity. And I call it now today, I like to refer to it as putting our heart and soul into our business. And, you know, some of us go into business with that intention right off the bat. We know that we're coming and we're bringing our heart and soul into it. We've got a mission, we've got a purpose. You know, all of those things are part of our core being. And then other people, well, maybe it's just, I'm here because I want a paycheck. I'm here to make some money. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I suggest to people is figuring out how to create the connection between the two. Is it possible to actually honor your heart, your soul, your spirit, and make income at the same time? Or, you know, does it have to be these two separate worlds? I don't think it has to be separate at all. And, you know, I'll start by saying this. You know, I have a very good friend who ends all of their networking meetings by saying, "Happy capitalism." And there's a lot of people who get really put off by that. And I didn't realize it until some of my close friends came to me and said, "Why does she say that? You know, I think that's such a negative thing." And I'm like, what? As a capitalism is only negative if you make it that way. Why in the world? And especially if you're in business, then you're part of free market capitalism. Why would you want to think of it as something negative? And I know why. It's all because of some of those visions that we carry in our heads. If you think of, if I say capitalism, the first thing you think of is a shady used car salesman. That would explain why people have a problem with capitalism. If you think of, some big corporation who has somehow taken advantage of their people, they haven't paid them enough, they don't give them enough time off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That might be why you have a hard time of thinking about happy capitalism. But to me, capitalism is what we make it. It's just like the internet is what we make it. You can find some really horrific things on the internet, but you also can find some real cool things like, I don't know, Women's Entrepreneur Network. That to me is a cool thing, and we wouldn't have it if it wasn't for the internet. So think about these things and think about our perspectives and how they make a difference in terms of what we're doing. Who in the world that businesses ever said businesses have to be strictly money driven? Oh, we talk about profit, we talk about the bottom line, and all of those things are good. But what's wrong with the idea of having integrity in business, doing what we say we will do? Oh my goodness. How many times have I had in the last month people who have come and made an appointment to be on Zoom with me and then not shown up? Not my idea of happy capitalism at that moment in time. But then there's the people who do show up and they just light up my day because I find people of like mind and like purpose. And that's when I get really, really excited. I used to have a mentor many years ago who said, one of the biggest problems in business is there's too many people who get caught in the trap of loving money and using people to get it. And I think that's what a lot of people think of when they think about capitalism. But here's the choice we get to make. We can choose to love people and use money to help them. What's wrong with that? That's where I love to live. And that's why I'm on the road. That's why we're full-time RVers. So what if it's time for more of us to rise up and put our heart and soul back into business, put our spiritual life into our business? Putting spirit back into business, I believe, can be a very, very powerful thing. There is a rise happening, and you may or may not be aware of it. There is a rise of mission-driven businesses. I've definitely seen more and more people talking mission-driven, purpose-driven, being a change maker, changing the world. And I love it when people put out things that say, be the change. Because I know lots of people who are, they're studying real hard and they're meditating and they're praying and I'm going to be the change that changes the world. And that's where we have to start, because we have to shift our thinking, our perspective, and everything in our spirit to be part of the change. But after you get into that beingness, we have to do it. There is nothing that's going to come out of the sky and wave a magic wand and say, and now we're a changed planet. We're happy, we're loving. No, we have to do the change. And personally, I believe that the small business community has more power to do the change on this planet than anybody else. Why is that? Because we're the best problem solvers around. We have to be, right? Or we wouldn't be in business. Conscious capitalism, social enterprise. These are things that are getting more and more attention out here. And when you talk about the younger generations, the ones who are in high school, college, or maybe just recently graduated, they are all about social enterprise and social impact. So if you position your business or you integrate something into your business to let people know that you're making a social impact, guess what? You now have a new type of personal brand. One that says, I'm not here just to be in business, but I'm also here to make an impact in my community. If you're not familiar with the concept of B Corps, let me just touch on that for a second, because B Corp it actually stands for a benefit corporation. And a benefit corporation has not just one bottom line. It's not all about profit. It's got a triple bottom line. So it's about people, it's about profit, and it's about planet. So the idea is that you still have a for-profit business. You don't have to have a nonprofit to go out here and be part of the change in the world. It's not a requirement. But we make the profit, but then we also figure out, how are we improving the planet? How are we helping people? And if you can prove those three things in your business, there's actually companies out here that will certify you as a benefit corporation. And I'm running into more and more people every day who are looking to work for B Corps, to do business with B Corps, because they want to be working with those businesses who understand it's great to make a profit, but it's also important to make a social impact. They are a B Corp or a social impact type business is an alternative to going through the challenges of having a nonprofit. One of the things that always has concerned me about the nonprofit world is you don't own it. The government does. And I've heard horror stories about people who had a nonprofit and their board was able to throw them out of it because they didn't own it. Isn't it an amazing idea to just say, okay, I have this S Corp, I have this LLC, I have whatever kind of business entity you might create. I own it, and I can choose to take some of the profit from that and use it out here to do good in our community. Lots of people think my husband and I are a nonprofit. We're not. Some days it might feel that way, but we're not. What we're doing is the money that we're bringing in, yes, we choose to live, we choose to stay on the road, but sometimes, like this last summer, we chose to take the money that we had and we ended up volunteering for the whole summer to do a young entrepreneur experience right here in Raleigh. We were able to serve at-risk youth. We were able to serve young people from single parent households. We were able to serve young people who had aged out of the foster care system. And we were so grateful when Haley came and actually spoke to our young people as well. Because yeah, they're all about the social media thing, but a lot of them were still struggling with how to use the social media to be able to build that audience and be able to create a bigger income from it. So, these are the things that we can do as social impact entrepreneurs. Cause-related marketing is huge. I remember several years ago, the NFL painted everybody in pink to support the Susan B. Komen Foundation. Anybody can choose to pick a cause that's important to them and make it part of your marketing. Make it part of your marketing campaigns. If you're all about putting an end to domestic violence, you can on any day say, and if you buy with me today, I'm going to give 10% of that income or that profit to XYZ charity that's all about ending domestic violence. And guess what? Now you have the ability to attract an audience who believes in your cause as much as believes in your product or service. Obviously, they both need to be there, but it gives you the opportunity to reach people that you might not have otherwise reached. Build a personal brand around whatever your passion is, and now you have the ability to stand out in some amazing ways. I love to talk about, well, here in North Carolina, it was kind of sad because a lot of people think, oh my God, I can't do that in my S Corp, my C Corp, whatever. Well, North Carolina used to have something called the L3C, which was a low profit, limited liability corporation. And that was supposed to mean that you were putting some of your profit back into the community. And so they understood if you didn't have a huge profit margin. Well, they turned around and decided to cancel the L3C because they said it wasn't needed. They said there was enough flexibility in our corporate structures as they are that anybody could choose to make a social impact. They didn't need the administrative burden of the L3C. So think about that. It's that simple. And I go back to, making donations to existing organizations, making them a partner somehow in what you're doing. Create a partnership with an existing organization. That's truly what we've had the ability to do here in Raleigh. I'm actually parked in the parking lot of a church, believe it or not. And this church has been working on reaching further and further into the community. And they knew that's what we were about. So they gave us a place to park for the summer so that we could do the young entrepreneur program here. And now they're actually allowing us to bring together our collaboration teams to do seminars here. They are fine with us going out into the community with flyers, promoting our seminars and saying they're being hosted by this church. And we do charge something for our seminars for one simple reason, partially to defray some of our costs. They're usually nominal fees unless there's something that's being given as part of the seminar. But part of that money goes to the church. We're creating the win-win situations where it's not just about us, it's about our church partner. And so many churches were slammed by the pandemic. So many small businesses were slammed by the pandemic. Why in the world doesn't it make more sense for us to be coming together with more of the churches, the organizations, figuring out how to do what I like to call shared fundraising? It becomes a win-win situation for both them and us. And in fact, we're doing a seminar here tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, and it's a hybrid seminar. So we've got some people who will come live here to the seminar tonight. We have some people who will be joining us on Zoom. And it doesn't matter, you know, it's like we just want to share. Tonight's seminar is called Deflating the Inflation Monster. You know, who really wants to participate in a recession? It is a choice. We can choose to get all wound up and upset about gas prices and all these other things, or we can say, heck no, I'm not going to participate, and I want to teach you how not to participate. So tonight we will be, as a partner with this church, we will be talking about how do you reduce costs in your family, because this was actually designed to reach out to our communities, to families. How do we reduce costs? How do we cut our debt? How do we increase our income? That happens to be by creating multiple streams of income. And even if you have a 40-hour-a-week job, you could be creating a home-based business. So we will be educating people tonight about the value of having a home-based business. That is a huge thing. And so with our collaboration teams, you know, that's what we're doing. We're bringing together teams of small business owners to deflate the inflation monster. Last month, we did one, we call it our wellness empowerment seminars. Last month, it was, we did one about the essential oils of the Bible. And the church pastor came and he's like, dang, I didn't know there was that much information in the Bible about essential oils. He's still trying to wrap his head around some of the value of that. But at least he became so much more aware. Such a cool thing. So, you know, another thing I want to make sure I had mentioned, and it was just like Haley coming and speaking to the young entrepreneurs. Any of us can choose to mentor somebody in our business. That's one of the simplest ways to put our heart and our soul in our business and make a social impact. We have a lot of confused youth out here, and you have the ability to help them learn about being an entrepreneur, how to be in business, how to learn about sales and marketing. And just like Haley did, instructing them on building that online audience and being able to, you know, take those relationships and turn them into currency, cash flow. That is an amazing thing for young people to learn. And you all have the ability to stand up and do something of that nature. So my question to all of you is it time for you to lead social change in your community? Is it time for you to lead the change of doing something amazing in your community? Just because you can't write a huge check doesn't mean you can't make a social impact. And it's time for more of us to do that. I think my time is starting to come to an end. I will make mention, if you want to see what we're doing, if you want to learn about what we're doing, go check out wecare-nc.com. That is our North Carolina We Care Partnerships membership site. And it'll give you more of a flavor of how we're bringing businesses together, how we're, reaching out to consumers and saying, you know what, if you don't trust some of the big businesses out there, if you don't feel like there's a lot left in our society to trust, we're building a trustworthy community of businesses that you should learn more about. And yeah, there is a link on this website too. You're certainly welcome to come out and sit in on our Zoom and see what we're doing with the seminar tonight, because we are looking to expand our membership of We Care members, not just across the US, around the world. We already have members in Canada. We have members considering it in the UK. And we're on the move, folks. We're here to create the movement to put heart and soul back into business, back into our communities, and back into our education system. I am Sheyenne Kreamer, and it has been my honor and pleasure to be here with you all today.
Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate having you here and your perspective and what you are doing in the community for small business. So welcome, Sheyenne. Thank you for doing this.
Thank
and
you.
Glad to have you here. So with that, I'm going to do, by the magic of the power of the wonderful site StreamYard here, I'm going to flip people around and bring up Kavita Singh. Welcome, Kavita. So happy to have you here.
Thank you, Haley. I'm so happy to be here as well. I know it's been a while since we've connected with each other, and I'm glad to be here again.
Yeah, awesome. So with that, I'm going to give you the stage. So welcome.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kavita Singh. I'm a transformational coach. I help people both in their personal lives and in their businesses. One of the core mottos that I work with, it's really for you to remember who you are as you do your business, because when we forget our identity, or if we evolve so much and we don't anchor ourselves again, our business and our lifestyle becomes wobbly, and then it is hard to have any sort of sustainability with that. It's not to say that things shouldn't fall apart or dismantle, if you will, in birth of something new. But if it is that your everyday life is wobbly, or you feel like you need to posture yourself or people please in order to have your business work for you, then certainly that's not a model in which you should choose to run your business. Some things that I actually use in helping people, my foundational work has been a lot with the archetypes, and I've moved through many models during the course of my online coaching career here in this industry. I've started back in 2014, so I've seen a lot and I've moved through a lot as well. And I found the archetype framework to be one of the most enjoyable frameworks, because it shows both the human psyche and then the evolution of us as we reach for something greater than ourselves, and how we're able to integrate that and then anchor ourselves. Along with that, I love using the Akashic Records, which gives us a whole different point of view of not only what's possible and doable, but it gives us access to the invisible, things that are in our field as potentiality, the ability to clear blocks and any sort of limiting beliefs. Because sometimes mindset is not enough, right? You can hear the steps and you know that's the thing to do, but you can't seem to get yourself to do it. Any one of you can relate to that sort of problem. So when that is happening, there's something more, there's something deeper there that you can certainly use to find the soul lesson. That's what I like to call it, because there's a gem for you. And as you unlock that for yourself, you're able to move freely with something that was once limiting you. So think about your current reality right now, if it's home or business, and see the behaviors in your reality that even though a lot of time has passed by, maybe 5 years or so, you still catch yourself doing certain things. It might be you self-sabotage every time you're faced with something new. Sometimes it might be that you have a good momentum and everything is going great for you, but the moment you glance over at somebody else, you start comparing yourself. And then you're, you judge yourself, your energy collapses, and then you question everything that you've been doing. Um, some other core examples, and this affects, everything in your life and business. It can be no matter what you do, it's never enough. So these are some patterns again that underneath that, um, I like to call them gems. There's something great for you. And it can be unique for your particular circumstances, and whatever you're facing in your life. But I'll share some stories in which you can see how beneficial it is. So, for instance, let's say you self sabotage. Every time you're facing something new, it seems like um, everything is working against you to keep you in your current field, in your comfort zone. And it causes your mind to question, like, is this really the thing or not? Now, every time you're facing that pattern, it doesn't mean that there's a silver bullet or a cookie cutter system to unhook that. It depends on what you're facing along with that and where you're at. So, one version of it can be, well, uh, my mind is thinking, well, this is a sign I shouldn't do it. But if I really tune in, this has been my dream all along, and I've always wanted to do it. And I recognize now that my belief is maybe if I did do this thing and I finally achieved my dream, then I wouldn't have anything else to work with. And so my system is trying to keep me safe and shut me down so that I can have something to move forward to. Because what's happening in my system is that it's reading it as this is the end all, so this is death. After I achieve this dream, there's nothing else for me. And so tuning into that, you can recognize too, like, okay, maybe I've been exposed to other family members who had the same behavior. And so they had this lifelong goal, but they kept it ahead of them like a dangling carrot to motivate them to move forward. Another reason for that can be like, well, maybe my family members couldn't motivate themselves otherwise. So they keep pushing the dream forward so that they can do something, because they think after they achieve the dream, then everything comes to a standstill, right? There's no motivation, there's no reason to get up, and life is dull and boring. So these are patterns that shows up, and when you're able to unhook them, it gives you the sense of freedom. You now get the opportunity to tap into freedom and be, oh, I can have this goal. Of course, I can achieve it. And then I get to see what else is there. I'm presenting with a blank canvas again, and I can put something in there, and I can see what else is possible if I don't know. Or I can take out one of the other dreams and see, is it still something that I want to achieve, or can I just simply let it go? And then you just release it, and you tune into who you are in that new version of you. Now, with that being said, in order to even have these sorts of momentum with yourself, I truly believe that your awareness is important. Awareness, of course, grows with your experience and with your ability to maybe journal and be transparent with yourself, or to communicate with your peers or colleagues or coaches or whoever you have, so that you can catch not only what's happening, but as you build your awareness, you will recognize that there are many nuances in the energy of truth, which means while there's a truth statement, when you're applying it to you, it may not quite work the way that you think it should work, because you are the variable in the formula, right? So when you're working with yourself and your mentors, you're able to recognize, wait a minute, my mentor said this and that person got it, comparing, right? And everything is working beautifully with them, but I don't seem to get it. What's wrong with me, right? And you question yourself. Your awareness and your ability to be honest and have beautiful conversations with the people who can catch that helps you to name those nuances. So for instance, let's say you have a situation where your love life is going great, but every time you try to run your business, your love life collapses when the business gets better. And you're like, well, what the heck is that? And when you examine the beliefs under that, you recognize, well, wait a minute, I have a belief that I can't have love and money at the same time. So they keep switching roles on me. I can either be great at love or great at money. I can't seem to have both. All right. And while a lot of people go through that, you're recognizing, but wait a minute, I made up a story because I experienced maybe abuse. I witnessed it, or maybe it happened for me. And I thought this was not for me. So I kind of wrote it off in my head. And because of that, no matter what I'm telling myself, if I'm using affirmations or whatever else it is, it's not working because I have a conflicting programming in my field. So one way to flip that, for instance, when you recognize that everything is energy, therefore love is energy, and money is energy. And if we're saying both things are energy, then love and money essentially carry the same frequency. And if I say, for instance, God is love, there's a frequency in that as well. Now frequency happens at different levels, right? There is a low level frequency and then there are higher levels. And you get to recognize that these energy frequencies can exist in a pure state. And based on where you're at, you're experiencing that level, that frequency in that level. And so it gives you a whole different perspective in terms of what you choose in your reality and feeling solid and whole in what you choose versus having to split yourself to experience love and then become somebody else to experience money. Let me know if that makes sense for you. And I'm looking at it as well to see if there are any comments. I will answer. Okay. The other thing I want to name here, besides awareness, like the next level of that is recognizing that you have brought yourself to the space that you're at. And sometimes in moving forward, it requires another version of you. And so in that process, you find yourself having to surrender to let go of the old. You have to surrender in terms of not controlling your reality so much and try to fit your old reality into your new reality. Or try to have the new reality without having to lose, quote unquote, anything. But think of it like just like you were remodeling your home. There are certain things, like certain walls would have to go in order to expand a certain wing of your home. And the new parts, the material and all of that comes in to make sure that that is done. So it's good to recognize again what is happening in your field. Awareness is so good. And then what is your next step? What is your approach? Or if you're trying an approach and it's not working, why is it glitching out, so to speak, right? Because there's a particular angle in which you're meant to see it and use it. Now, the ultimate journey when you're moving from awareness, you want to get yourself into the other end of the spectrum. When I like to use the word submission, and surrender is like midpoint, submission is more the end point for me. And what I mean by that is when you've gotten the ability to build a really beautiful relationship with your intuition and your higher self and the divine, then when you're able to submit to the guidance that comes through you, it becomes a very beautiful experience. You become the messenger and you allow that divine energy to work through you. And you will find that you operate at a level where whatever you do, while there's a natural state and a natural outcome for things, you actually experience your reality being far greater than you can ever imagine, right? Things blow your mind. You didn't even think you were capable of certain things, and the ripple effect of that choice is mind-blowing. Yet you recognize it's not just you as your human or ego self doing all of this. It's a collaborative force, if you will, between you and the divine, and this outcome is happening, right? Everything becomes blessed. There is a high frequency of gratitude as you choose to show up, because in choosing to do work from that end of the spectrum, it is not always easy, but it's quite simple. Meaning that you can't be throwing a tantrum and being like, oh, well, I don't want to show up today, right? If you're guided to show up, you show up, you deliver, and you move to the next thing. So again, what I'm saying for the framework that I'm using, it applies both to your life and your business. Let's take it a little bit more practical. So one of the things I have noticed for a lot of entrepreneurs is they're able to show up, do the things in their business, create an offer, they try to sell it. But in the process of creating an offer and selling it, there's a lot of self-doubt that comes in, right? That self-doubt, that questioning yourself, in archetype language, it's your saboteur. It really creates a delay in the process. And sometimes you doubt yourself so much that you'd probably drop your project. The flip side of that, what really is required, is, because the opposite of the saboteur is your magician archetype. And what that does is it's able to bend time, that part of your psyche. It's able to have you be in a space that you didn't think you could be in. It's able to give you out of the blue opportunities and all of those kinds of things. Now, if you're present to what's really happening in your reality, you're also able to flip your energy and not stay in the shadow dynamics of the saboteur, but really ride on the frequency of the magician. So when you show up, yes, you're going into a space of the unknown, but you're not going in there terrified. There's a deep level of trust in your choice to even be there, to even show up. And then, of course, that ripples out into whatever you're doing and whatever you're choosing. And of course, whatever you face that seems to be the unknown, the right resources come in. Suddenly, if it is that you need to do research, you will have the right links to do your research with, or the right people to help you, to give you the, get straight to the point with your research. And you're able to get to the other side of whatever you're facing. But if you entertain the saboteur, then not only will you feel doubt and it creeps in and it takes over your mind, but you also lose energy, you lose steam, and maybe you think you have to start over at worst, So it's good to be able to work with what you're facing and work through your human tendencies, which is why the archetype frame is one that I love so much. And then, of course, get to the magic part of it, because I truly believe that if you have an offer, for the most part, your offer was inspired, it was guided, and there was a reason why you had to do a particular offer. Because of your experience, because of your specific dynamic in terms of where you were in your timelines, how it happened, why it happened, how you approached it, where you might have quote unquote failed the first time and then you got better at it and then you were able to succeed. That quote unquote failure part was the most important part of your journey, because that allowed you to get to the level of success that you're able to experience. And because of that entire spectrum, and you being the one to do the particular program, you're able to help people to not make the same mistakes that you did, right? You're able to have them evolve faster. You're able to have them save time, and you're able to have them have the outcome if they're committed in also having the outcome that they say that they want, because sometimes that's a problem in the industry too, right? People say that they want something, but they don't always show up to do it. And then what happens is that they're able to really experience not only the outcome of that experience of delivering it because they were the one that's guided to do the offer, but to have an integrated experience that takes them to the next level. So the next time they run that offer, it's running on an even higher frequency. So again, pay attention to what's happening with you and your business or whatever you're facing, and try to apply these points of your awareness, where your energy of surrender is, and if you're able to tap into the energy of submission, what that looks like for you. I know in terms of the archetypes, I mentioned the saboteur because it's one that we all know and we can relate to. You don't necessarily need any information to know what that looks like. The only information you actually need is if you're facing it in such a way that you can't seem to get over your saboteur, then of course we can address the nuances with that. However, there's one more that I want to say here that you really get to step into now, and that is your prices. So many of you have trouble with your prices and what that means, and how to price your offer. And that archetype, the shadow one, is called the prostitute. Surprise, surprise. And what you want to flip that into is the lover. So I have a special freebie here for you where you can truly see how to apply your intuition in making your price match your offer. There is a link that I'm going to drop in the chat for you. And if it is that you need personal support, then I also have the opportunity for you to meet me on Zoom, where I would happily help you for free to take you through that process if you're still struggling with your prices. So with that said, I'm happy to be here. I know I'm at time, and thank you, Haley, for having me here. And is it okay for me to drop it in the chat, or are you going to email that?
Yep, you can.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Yes.
Put it in the chat, and there's the link that you gave me earlier. So I hope that helps.
Yes, that's it. Thank you so much. So you guys get to apply this, and I look forward to hearing from you.
That's awesome. Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
Liv.
appreciate it. And we will talk soon. Thanks.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thank you. And welcome to our next speaker, Dr. Rowena Winkler. I am so happy to have you here.
So happy to be here today, Haley. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. And I am so excited about your talk, and I cannot wait to hear what you're going to talk about and share with us today. I'm going to go ahead and give you the stage. Thank you.
Sounds good. I think that it was meant to be for me to follow Kavita because I feel that we have a very similar vibe in terms of what we're talking about and how energetically we can magnetize, attract, and work with clients, customers, audiences that are a better fit for you. And a little bit about me, I'm Dr. Rowena Winkler, And I work with women to get into a more authentically aligned place with their businesses, with their lives, with their careers. So today I'm going to talk about 4 ways that you can get realigned. Listen, I don't know about y'all, but I'm sure as entrepreneurs, especially as women, especially if you're also a mama on top of that, like I am, we can get super stressed out, overwhelmed. We are working the 3rd shift, the 4th shift, trying to get everything done while building our business. And there can be times when our mental health, our energy is just tanked. So I'm going to give some tips on how to get back on track, get realigned, and start making moves toward that business that you know that you are so capable of becoming, that you can step into that embodiment and power. And so the first tip is really getting away from the comparisonitis. I know it's super hard, especially when we're scrolling on Facebook or Instagram and we're like, dang, so and so business owner is doing all these amazing things and they're making all this money and they're making all these great strides. Something that a friend has told me that has stuck with me and resonated is you can't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 30. And here's the other thing. You have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. It may seem like that someone has it all together, but you have no idea what's happening backstage, right? If we're going to use some theater terms here. So stay focused, try to get those blinders on and not feel like that your story has to be exactly the same as someone else's, because the fact of the matter is that's just not the case. And anyway, if we all were the same and had the same experiences and the same journeys in our entrepreneurship, that would be quite boring. You're so unique in the gifts and talents that you bring to the table. And so reminding yourself of that. And also, if you need some inspiration, look at the stories of your role models. I know for me personally, with my communication background, Oprah is certainly someone I look up to. Reading her story and learning about what she had to overcome to get where she is today gives me the validation and the motivation and the inspiration to keep on going, right? You know, these things don't happen overnight. So get that comparisonitis out of there. It's not cute. All right. The second pro tip in terms of getting realigned and getting back to a place where we can focus in on our businesses and show up authentically and aligned is the mindset piece. Now, I know a lot of us go into entrepreneurship because perhaps, as is the case with me, I was just not, the corporate life was not doing it for me. I wanted the space to explore and expand and really tap into my gifts and talents as a way to help and support others. But what I didn't anticipate, and mind you, I'm a fairly new entrepreneur. I just launched my business in 2020 during the collective retreat of COVID when I was asking myself, what am I doing here? I didn't realize how much of that inner work and that mindset stuff was going to come through. Because when you're showing up as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you don't have you don't have a C-suite to hide behind. You don't have the HR or all these teams to support you right out the gate. If you do, good for you. But I know for me, I have a very small team working with me and I have more accountability. And that can be really, really scary. And so tapping into what are the root causes of my feelings of perhaps not enoughness, or the fact that I am feeling anxious or triggered by a certain way I want to show up. There's nothing wrong with meeting your edge and being able to push yourself, especially when it comes to things like this, right? Being able to come live, to talk about the things that you're working on, to help and support other people. These are all great things. But sometimes there's something that runs a little bit deeper. I know for me, I have struggled with perfectionism for a very, very long time. I'm sure there are folks out there that can resonate. And I realized, thanks to the help of another one of my role models, Dr. Brene Brown, that the perfectionism was covering up feelings of inadequacy or the fact that I cannot be valued if I don't show up as perfect. And so by doing that work and realizing that I need to reframe this, reprogram the stories, get rid of that saboteur that Kavita mentioned, it allows us to be able to see things differently, to approach our businesses as a really fun experiment where we can take things and maybe that offer didn't quite work out. Maybe that package needs to be tweaked a little bit. Instead of seeing yourself as a complete failure, seeing it as a way to be more curious and to understand the ways that you can help your target audience even more. Now, the third way that we can tap in and get realigned, get ourselves ready to go for our business is the value of structure. Now, I'm sure that, again, another reason why we love entrepreneurship is that we have full accountability. We can be flexible with our schedule, right? I can still pick up my daughter from daycare and then work on a session with a client all on the same day without having to feel the need to take PTO or take off, that sort of thing. But we still need that structure in order to form a very solid foundation. Now, as for me, in the work that I do, I integrate a lot of the more spiritual, esoteric, woo. And so the structure that I incorporate into my day-to-day work involves meditation. It involves having a gratitude practice where every single time a payment comes in through the work with my clients, it's like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It involves having set times of the day where I look at my calendar and make sure that I don't overschedule so that energetically I can be present for things like this and for my clients. It's finding ways to keep track of finances, even though that's not as fun perhaps as some of the other stuff. It's very, very important, right? To have an operational budget in place and to make sure that you are spending wisely and on the things that are worth the investment. So by incorporating that structure, by incorporating practices into your day, by incorporating streamlined practices with the operations of your business, you can set yourself up for even bigger, better, and greater things. You invite more abundance. You send a signal that like, hey, I am ready to receive. Let us go. And it certainly helps less of the anxiety and the headaches that may come through as you're building your business. And speaking of receiving and allowing the abundance to go through, the last tip that I want to give in terms of working on your business and being able to show up aligned and authentically is the expansion. And I feel like this community in particular is an amazing example of this. What does this mean? Expansion is in regards to finding the people that you can hang out with, right? Finding your communities, being able to connect with fellow entrepreneurs and bringing up your challenges, your fears, your ideas. It helps so much on this journey to be able to connect with like-minded people who get it. You know, for example, my husband works 9 to 5. He is a computer scientist, works with software, that sort of thing. Certainly not the same vibe as me over here, who's a humanities gal and enjoys, having more flexibility of entrepreneurship. So being able to find communities and folks, as in this network, to be able to ask these sorts of questions that I could bring forward to my husband, but he may not necessarily get it, is super, super helpful. And as we're looking to up level ourselves and get to that next point in our business, it also helps to find mentorship in those arenas that perhaps you need help with, right? Perhaps you need help with the money mindset and management piece. Maybe you need help with messaging and marketing. So expand by finding folks that can coach you, that can mentor you, that can help you. And then when it comes to expansion of your team, find the folks that can help fill in the gaps. Look, we don't have to do everything. Again, I mentioned that I'm a recovering perfectionist, and part of my journey has been being able to let go and delegate and find whether that's a virtual assistant or a partner or a team to do marketing or emails or what have you that you need for your business, it certainly helps to realize that you don't have to do everything. You don't have to be perfect at everything. And quite honestly, you don't need to expend any time or energy on the things that are not within your zone of genius. So it's not a failure or that you're not good at a certain thing if you hire help, right? It just allows you, again, more space, more expansiveness for you to do the thing that you are best at. You know, for me, it's the coaching. I love the one-on-one work that I do with my clients. For others, it may be maybe folks are into the budgeting. I'm certainly not. So I have someone that's helping me, right? So find those folks that can help build your team. Find the communities that are going to uplift you and to support you, because y'all, this journey is not always fun, right? It's not always puppies and rainbows. I think that entrepreneurship has, in a certain way, been sensationalized, right? We see these Instagram influencers and what have you, these women that show up and they're like, yes, everything's great, I'm making millions of dollars. That's not necessarily the case. And just to affirm you, you and I are not less than because we're not making 7 figures right out of the gate. We are setting the structure, as I mentioned, we are getting our mindset right, and we are having a better perspective by not playing into that comparisonitis game and getting to a place where we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out or feeling that we have to check XYZ box to feel like that we're at a certain level with other fellow entrepreneurs. As I mentioned, the work that I do, it helps women tap into their authenticity and alignment. And the fact of the matter is, what that looks like for me, what that looks like for Haley, what that looks like for folks in this community may not necessarily be the same exact blueprint as yours. And that's what makes this so amazing, right? That's what the beauty is of being able to have the privilege of stepping into our power and owning our own business. We can show up as we are, as we choose to show up for our customers, our clients, our audiences. And listen, y'all, the folks that are attracted to you, they sense that. They can see when you're coming off as contrived or behind a mask. It's time to put that mask down and to show up as the most amazing, empowered, authentic, unapologetic woman that you know that you can be, so that you can show up and help others in order to support yourself and your family and whoever's a part of that community. There's a quote that I love to share. It's a bit of a tweak from Ben Platt, who won the Tony Award for the musical Dear Evan Hansen. And the quote goes like this: what makes you different makes you powerful. What makes you different makes you powerful. So again, as I mentioned, stop looking around you, because what you need is, you already got it, girl. Like, it's already there. What makes you different makes you powerful. Those things that perhaps as a child or even as a young adult that you felt were weird or strange, or you felt like an outsider, those are the very same gifts and talents and energy that are going to attract and draw the right fit clients and customers to you. So just remember and take these pro tips in hand, that you don't have to compare your chapter 1 to your chapter 30. That removing those limiting beliefs and recognizing that you're amazing and that you're going to achieve whatever you want as long as you have the right mindset attached to it. But it doesn't just end there. You can't just, you can't just think that you're gonna have a successful business and not do anything about it. There has to be inspired action steps to get there. And that involves providing that structure. That involves having the practices in your day-to-day and in your business that's going to form the foundation of the amazing work that you do. And then last but certainly not least, right, given the context where I'm giving this information, expand and find your people. It is so, so, so important. So I invite you, right? If this is something that resonates, I'd love to hear from you. If there's anything that has come through based on your own work with your businesses, you can find me at my website at rowenawinkler.com. I have various offerings, including my own community. Speaking of community, right? That I have a membership where I integrate these practices of being able to step into your authenticity, to work together and have those best practices and inspired action steps to get you to where you'd like to go and where you want to be. I just think that this is the time. I'm feeling that for us as women, and it's super overdue. Like, let's be honest. It's super overdue. It is time for us to step up and show up as our authentic selves and to just make things happen and change the world and serve the people we want to serve one person at a time. So if you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or feel that you don't have the capability to do it, I just want to urge you to keep going and to tap in this community and to reach out, because as you can probably gather from this talk, I'm super passionate about helping women see themselves, holding up the mirror, being an accountability partner and saying, you got this, you're amazing. And for the last time, I just want to share the quote so that it resonates with you and that it sinks in and then it drops down deep. What makes you different, friends, what makes you different makes you powerful. So show up in that power, show up as your beautiful, amazing selves. You guys are goddesses. You're amazing. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing the other speakers today and in the network. So thank you so much, Haley.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm sitting here writing down the what makes you different makes you powerful.
It's a good one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you so much for doing this today. It's been a delight and a pleasure and an honor to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, with the magic of power of StreamYard, here we try to swap our speakers again. Welcome to Liv. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm
Welcome.
happy to be here.
So happy to have you here. And I think that the talks are going to flow very nicely together. I can't wait to hear your talk. And
Thank you.
with that, I give you the stage. Thank you, Liv.
Great. Thanks, Haley. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Liv. I am broadcasting from Sydney, Australia. So it is quite early in the morning for me right now. So you'll excuse if I have a sip of coffee. My business is called The Branding Psychologist. I do brand strategy, brand voice stuff. And I come from I studied psychology at uni. I come from a creative writing and performance poetry background. And today I wanted to share a framework that I came up with, which can be used to both construct or assess the strength of your brand. And this is something that it'll work with larger established brands. It'll work with big companies that are launching a sub brand, and it also works with people who are just starting out, and it's just you, and you're not really sure what you're doing yet. You don't have anything to show for your business yet, but you're starting. So the acronym is BRAVE, and I will dive into what it stands for and what all of the pieces mean. But the background to it is that, as humans, we grow up absorbing cultural beliefs, and we have experiences which combine with personality traits to create the personalities that we show to the world. And that personality comes through in our body language and the words we use and what we care about and how we present ourselves and how we relate to others and how we talk to others. And all of that determines how people perceive us. When you're building a brand, you have to create that personality from scratch. You have to create something that is almost as thorough as a human being, But in humans, it happens organically. And for a brand, you have to do it intentionally. But the more thorough and consistent your brand is, the more believable it is, and the more deeply your people and your audience will connect with you. And the more connected they feel to you or to your brand, then the more likely they are to buy from you. So moving on to the acronym, BRAVE stands for body language, relatability, articulation, values, and expression. And I am going to break them down for you. So when I say B is for body language, I am actually talking about the UX. And every time I start with this, people are like, wait, you're a copywriter, you're a brand strategist with a copy background. Why is the first piece of your framework a design element? But it is, and that's because I want everyone who's listening to stop and think about a time someone walked into a room and you just had a gut feeling that you don't like them. There's just something about them, you don't like them, you don't vibe with them, you can't say exactly what it is, but there's something. Those instincts come from our brains picking up hundreds, thousands, countless nonverbal cues and helping you decide if that person is safe and if that person is trustworthy. It's a pretty common statistic floating around, which you might have seen, that 90% of communication is nonverbal, which means that even if your actual messaging and the words on your website or the words in your social media is spot on, people's brains register tone and body language first. But if your brand lives online, it doesn't have a physical body giving out signals for your audience to read. So instead, it's the UX that creates those crucial first impressions. And in case anyone doesn't know, U stands for user experience. And it includes things like, is your material formatted properly for the platform? Is your website, does it work on laptop, mobile, iPad, everything? When people access it, does it make sense and does it work properly? Is it easy to navigate? Does it load quickly? Can users find what they want quickly and easily? If you think about any of those questions and the answer is not a resounding and confident yes, then your brand is essentially giving off body language red flags. And that's because all those usability factors leave an impression on your audience, which is deeper than whatever you happen to be saying. Because we have to remember that these days, literally anyone can just put something on the internet. So we've kind of become desensitized to that, and we've been trained to spot an untrustworthy digital presence. So when I say B is for body language, I want you to make sure that your brand is coming across as consistent and trustworthy wherever it shows up, every single platform, whether that's LinkedIn or TikTok or your website or your own app or StreamYard or whatever it is. And if you take that UX informed approach, it means your messaging can sing out loud and clear, and the people will actually be able to take in what you're trying to say. So then moving on to the second letter, R is for relatability. Does your target audience relate to you as a brand? And if so, how much? This step is all about getting to know your target audience. And I'm not talking about what kind of car they drive. I do not care about that. Demographics are not always useful, but the psychographics, the psychology and their emotions, that is useful. And that's because people don't pay for products. They pay either to move closer to pleasure or further away from pain. And if you understand the first, second, and third degrees, sort of the flow effect of your audience's pain and pleasure points, then you can position your brand to hit that bullseye. You can create messaging and you can create content that makes your audience feel like you understand them better than they understand themselves because you've done that emotional analysis. And then when it comes to psychology is actually broader than just emotions. It's understanding your audience. It's understanding how your audience conceives of themselves and then how your brand builds on that. How do they see themselves and how do you help them see themselves a certain way? How do they want to see themselves? How do they want to not see themselves anymore? And once you understand all of that, you can make sure your audience relates to your brand. And relatability builds relationships, and relationships build sales, and sales help you move towards financial freedom or your goals and whatever those goals look like for you. The next step is A for articulation. And this is where things start to get a bit more technical. The first few steps are a bit more a bit more conceptual. This step focuses not so much on what your message is, but how you deliver that message. And it is really common for larger businesses or businesses that work with teams of writers to have a defined style guide and a defined tone of voice. It's not as common for people who are just starting out and entrepreneurs and founders of smaller to medium-sized businesses to have them, because they're a lot of work. They are a lot of work, and sometimes it's not so easy to apply them because you have to keep referring to the document and you got to check it and is it right? But if you do spend some time in this step and you apply what you create, will save countless headaches. And that's because what you want to say will change every day. What you want to say, you've got a sale or you've got a promotion or you want to connect, like whatever it is, it keeps changing. But knowing how to say it will stay reasonably consistent. So this phase can include things like creating a brand story and a tone of voice. It can be things like looking into how your tone of voice varies for your different platforms. How do we sound on Facebook versus how do we sound on LinkedIn? Slightly different. This can include workshopping your key messages, defining how you talk about your offers, like what is our offer called? What do we say we include? Making sure that that's really tight and consistent. It can be a messaging strategy and digging into your position. And I wanted to pause here and just mention something about this framework. This framework is not a step-by-step guide. So if you do decide to apply it, you don't have to do these in order. And you can kind of do like a bit of this and a bit of that and then circle round and round and round. That's because the steps won't be the same for everyone, and you can apply them. And then as your brand grows, you might realize that you need to go back and dig more deeply into one of the steps. But it's just a way to make sure that you've covered all your bases. Yeah. So A is for articulation, and then moving on to V, which is for values. Most people know when it comes to branding that they need to do their mission, vision, values. And I have spoken to so many people that kind of did it. And then how do we use it? And is this really that useful? And it's in my head already. Do I have to write it down? And I'm not here to knock that holy trinity. It definitely has its place. But I also want to suggest another way of looking at it. It is a good thing to know your brand values. It's better to know your brand values and how they manifest. But it is best of all to understand your audience's values. Because if you understand your audience and their values, you can start to explore how you help your audience become more aligned with their values. How does your product or service help them become more aligned with what's important to them and the kind of person that they want to be? Because if you sell something that makes people feel more like themselves or more like the self that they aspire to be, absolutely irresistible. Which is a bit of a different way of approaching values, but I really, really, really encourage people to take that two-sided look, because your business, it's not really about you, it's about the people that you're serving. And that brings us to the final step, which is E is for expression. And this step is probably the one that is most commonly associated with copywriting. It's a nitty-gritty, very, very detailed style guide. And whether the end result of this step lives in your brand strategy document or a brand voice guide or just like a post-it note on your computer, it doesn't really matter, as long as it's defined and therefore consistent. So to give you a few ideas of what you can include in your nitty-gritty style guide is for expression step. Again, it can be your tone of voice and variations for different platforms. It can be your cadence, it can be your vocabulary, your sense of humor with examples. It can be writing down guidelines for how does your brand use emojis, how do you format things, how do you write the days of the week and the dates, how do you format your titles, are they all in capitals, are they in sentences, are they in title case? This can also include your elevator pitch. When we talk to investors, this is what we say, and when we talk to customers, this is what we say, and when we talk, internally, this is how we talk about ourselves. This can include names and taglines of your services and products, your social bios, your brand voice pillars. It can include a lot of things. And I know that sounds broad, and that's because it is, intentionally, and that's because what a particular brand needs to cover in this phase will vary. But if you're starting to feel a bit, it sounds like a lot, ask yourself, what will my brand use again and again? What are the things that we talk about again and again and again? And what needs to be consistent no matter how many people write it, whether it's you or your VA or your cousin or your like intern, or maybe you're working with copywriters, whoever it is, like what do people talk about, recurring way that needs to be consistent. And that will help you decide what you need to cover in this step. And that is the whole thing. Again, I know it is very, very broad, but if you go through this phase, you'll end up with a human sounding, feeling brand, which is thorough. And again, it's an iterative process. So if you do decide to apply this, I encourage you to come back to it every 3 months, every 6 months, once a year, whatever that looks like for your brand, and just check, like, are we still covering all of this? Have we fallen down? Are we slacking anywhere? The brand changed? Does any of this stuff need to adapt and grow with the brand? And yeah, that is it. I really hope that is helpful for everyone. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining, and such valuable information. I really, really appreciate it, because I think a lot of times we focus on all of the wrong things with branding. We focus on the ideal client and trying to get into all the psychographics and all the, we go off the deep end.
Yeah, it's so easy to get lost in it, especially, branding is such a huge, it covers so much that I found that it can be hard to know, what do you need to focus on when you're starting out? Like, what's actually important? What are you actually going to use in the first year of your business, or the third year, or the 10th year?
Yeah. And I think a lot of times we're focusing on doing all the things because we see somebody who's been in business for 10 years and we're like, oh, of course I have to have all of that before I can possibly get started, not realizing that they themselves didn't have any of it when they started.
Yeah, exactly. And also, sometimes you see people and they're like, oh my God, they have a brand statement and a brand promise and a brand this thing and a brand that thing. But how do you get there? What do you have to do to get those like assets in a way that they'll actually help your brand? It's there's a lot of mystery behind the scenes stuff in branding. So that's, I really wanted to give people something tangible that they could use when they're starting out.
Tell me about this link that you're sharing here.
Yes. So I have a link to a discount on a tone of voice workbook, which is for step number, it kind of covers step 3 and step 5 and a little bit of the others. It's basically, if you're starting out and you're not really sure how to start working through this, this framework or with your brand, this kind of just guides you through the process. It gives you some questions, it gives you some exercises. And if that's all you do, that will be enough to get you started with a consistent brand voice.
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And this wraps up this WEN-Talk. So thank you so much for being our last speaker today, Liv. I really appreciate you. Y'all go back and listen to the whole thing. You'll be amazed, and it will be an awesome experience for everybody. Thank you guys. And with that, we're going to say good morning, good night. Liv, I hope you have a great day, and get some more coffee in your system, because I have a feeling you might have too much blood in your caffeine system. We'll talk later. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.